Um, it is. So welcome everybody. My name is Caitlin. I'm the events coordinator at Square Books. We are gathered here this evening to celebrate the triumphant re-release of Long Division, written by Kiese Laymon, and he is joined in conversation by Nafissa Thompson-Spires. I will tell you a little bit more about them shortly, but I wanted to do a little housekeeping and tell you about some other upcoming events. I know we've got a lot of new faces and some familiar ones too. So I'll try to keep it brief. Next Monday, June 14th at 5:30 p.m. Central Time, we will be hosting Rivka Galkin in conversation with Alexandra Kleeman for Rivka's long-awaited but well worth waiting for novel, Everyone Knows Your Mother is a Witch. It's spellbinding fiction. It's actually historical fiction. It's about a witchcraft trial in the 17th century, but it has a decidedly modern tone. So that's next Monday. Then on Tuesday, June 15th at 6 p.m., we are kind of tiptoeing back into live events. So it'll be a hybrid event with Curtis Wilkie for When Evil Lived in Laurel, The White Knights and the Murder of Vernon Dahmer. This is the inside story of a FBI informant who helped to bring down the KKK organization responsible for a brutal civil rights era killing in 1966 in Laurel, Mississippi. If you would like to attend in person, please keep in mind that there will be limited occupancy at Off-Square Books with socially distanced seating. Please bring your mask. If you're not ready to join us, it will also be on Zoom and Facebook Live. So we're happy to meet you wherever you are. Then finally, Wednesday, June 16th at 5:30 on Zoom, we'll have Chris Offutt in conversation with Patton Oswalt. Yes, that Patton Oswalt, for The Killing Hills. This is Chris's newest novel. It's, I love this quote, it's brooding and bloody country noir. And that's Wednesday, June 16th at 5:30. Okay, so enough about them. Let's move on to the main event. So a little bit more about Kiese and Nafissa. Born and raised in Jackson, Mississippi, Kiese Laymon is a professor in English and creative writing at the University of Mississippi here in Oxford. He's the author of the novel Long Division, the memoir Heavy, and the essay collection How to Slowly Kill Yourself and Others in America. Nafissa Thompson-Spires is the author of the highly acclaimed short story collection, Heads of the Colored People. She earned a doctorate in English from Vanderbilt University and a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing from the University of Illinois. Her work has appeared in Story Quarterly, Lunch Ticket, and The Feminist Wire, among other publications. And she was a 2016 fellow at the Callaloo Writers Workshop. Welcome. Thank you all so much. I'm so excited to talk about, or listen, I'm not going to be talking, listen to y'all talk about Long Division. Those of y'all tuning in, please submit questions at the Q&A function, and I will kind of come back and moderate those in around 30-ish minutes. Thank y'all both so much for taking the time to be here. So thrilled. Y'all have fun.
Thanks, Kayla.
Thank you. Hey.
Hey, how are you?
I'm happy to be talking to you. Real happy.
Too.
Real happy.
This is like such a big honor. I'm just going to gush about Kiese for a minute because it is a huge honor. I feel like you are not, I don't feel like I know you are one of, I think, our best living writers for absolute sure. And you just show so much love for Black people, but you seem also unapologetically, even if you're afraid, to speak the truth. And I just have so much respect for you as an artist. I read Long Division when it first came out and it blew my mind. I was like, this is the Percival Everett, this is the Pat Johnson, this is the Paul Beatty, this is the stuff that I really, really want to read. This is like the next generation of this kind of Black lit. And so post-soul lit, I guess people would call it, but I don't know if that's how you think of yourself.
I was going to ask you, what do we call it? Because, you know, as you know, after I read Heads of the Colored People, I was teaching at Iowa, and I remember the morning I finished that shit, I was like literally like frozen, but also like simultaneously like just just heated up. And then I kept thinking about like what we call what you just did. Cause on the surface of like short stories and people called it post-soul, blah, blah, blah. But what do you call what you do? Because that's what I want to do. I want to make sure I'm doing it right though. What you call it?
I want to do what I'm trying to get like you, for real. I really appreciate that, like, deeply. I don't know what to call it. I think we're past post-soul lit. Like, I think we're kind of half a generation or a generation younger than maybe Matt and Victor, Lal and Paul and all those people. But I really am not sure. I just like to think of my work as Black satirical metafiction, I guess.
Me too.
Yeah.
I feel like in a different year, in a different time, we would be on a bus right now, headed to some hot ass literary event talking about. I feel like I spent the last few years or summers or seasons with you at weird places that were literary, and then I feel out of place at those places, and then I see you, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be all right.
Yeah, I felt the exact same way. I remember being on the bus at the LA Times Book Prize Festival, and we were like the only two Black people on that bus. And we just sat by each other and talked loud, and it was like all old white people who were very nice, but we were having a different kind of conversation than they were having. So
You were
yeah.
beyond all kind of knowledge. I don't know if you remember what you were telling me about, but I was getting hip to all kind of medicinals and stuff.
Oh yes, I remember. I didn't know if you wanted me to expose what we were talking about, but yes, I very much remember. You're a gummy person.
I'm trying.
Yeah, I'm looking at a big MedMin bag right in front of me right now.
Oh,
so I'm stocked up.
see?
Yeah, but I want to ask you some questions and not waste your time. Can you talk about re-releasing this book? And I know you've talked quite a bit about it, and also written quite a bit about it, but the re-release process, kind of buying back your work, owning your own material, what has that been like, and how are you feeling about this particular version?
I don't know about you, but it's hard for me to say I feel happy about many things, but I feel happy, and I don't feel happy because I feel lucky that like it's in a lot of places, and I feel lucky that people have bought it, but I just feel happy that I could do something I didn't think I could do. You know what I mean? Like I thought when I put that book out, the dude bought it for like $3,000 or $4,000. And I didn't, I wanted the cover to be different. I wanted the font to be different. I want the stories to be like, like kind of stretched apart. But I didn't have like the clout or the will or whatever to make it happen. And it just made me happy 8 years later that I could, sadly buy the books back. I didn't want to have to buy my own work back. But it made me happy that I could buy the work back and put it out. And you know what? I couldn't have done that without like, I was doing all that shit before by myself. And like, like my buying that book back had everything to do with the team around me, from PJ to Kathy, to Claire, who's just helped so much. So, I like being a part of a team. And so I just feel happy that we were able to do what we said we were going to do. And that sort of rarely happens. So I feel happy.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's so beautiful. This is the cover you deserved all along, I feel like. And this jacket actually gets at what a good designer might have done the first time around, because you have a description of what the cover of Long Division, the book within the book, looks like. And this is what the book within the book looks like. There's like some blue flowers, some yellow stuff, some keyboard, and a Klan's.
Yep.
So this, the description was in the book all along, and this is what it should have been.
And part of it is just like, I'm not even upset anymore. It's just, I think sometimes as young writers, we don't understand that publishers and editors like are experimenting too and don't necessarily know what the fuck they're doing. And so, like what you just said about like the description of a cover being in the book. Yep. That was there all along, but also, I was there to read that book all along, but the editors and the publishers didn't think I could read that book as well as the person that they hired. And the person they hired to read it, who's a great reader, just read that book terribly. You know what I'm saying? So the audio book to Long Division is not what it needs to be, but it could have been. I was right there waiting to get in the game. You know what I'm saying? So I just think it's really interesting sometimes these people who we assume have a certain kind of mastery of something often understandably don't. But, we got to sometimes deal with their inability to imagine. And that's what happened with Long Division.
And I think this book as a whole, in a lot of ways, is about people's inability to imagine. And you talk about this a lot in How to Slowly Kill Yourself and Others, and the new version in particular. But, you know, the white imagination not really having a capacity for Black pain that isn't trauma porn, for the breadth of kinds of Black people there are, for all kinds of things. And you talk about Faulkner not imagining certain kinds of people when he's writing. You talk about all kinds of people who have been sort of canonized as major writers who had no space for imagining the kind of Black people that we actually are. And so one of the things I love about this book is that it imagines it in so many different ways, and all of them are parallel. It doesn't matter if we're in 1964, if we're in 1985, or if we're in 2013. There's so many parallels between everyone, but there are also so many differences. This really does get at the breadth of Black people, from even like the Malahatchie accent versus the Jackson accent, or like a Flora accent or a Pearl accent. So yeah. I really appreciate all of that.
I love that you said that. It makes me really happy to hear that you see any of that in that book. And also, you know, the thing that I feel like you did so well in Heads that I wanted to do well in Long Division and tried to do better in the revision is, you know, sometimes I just feel like we have to ride like those like Black children's sentences, you know, to their conclusion. And even in the first edition of Long Division, there was this one point where City was talking about Lavander Peeler says, you know, I'm fatter than Sean Kingston. And I had been working with like young people the summers that I was writing Long Division. And even that wasn't like the rhythm that and so even in the revision, I got it more right, where, you know, it was like, Lavander says I'm fatter than Sean Kingston at his fattest. Because that's the kind of sentences that I heard, you know, Dylan talking with young folks. It's also the kind of sentences that like we deployed. And, you know, that fucking folks since 1964 deployed as well. You know what I'm saying? So like a lot of that book is about, I mean, it's sort of plot driven and blah, blah, but a lot of it is just sentence and art driven. And I know you see that because that's what I see in your work.
Well, I appreciate that, because you care so much about the sentences, and this book cares so much about the sentences. And I like what you said about like letting Black kids finish the sentence, finish it the way they would have finished it. And this draft feels even more like it gets at that concern. It's kind of a meta book. I don't know if you think of it that way, but yeah, it's a book that I think makes an argument about what books should do, what audiences should do, what readers should do or can do. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think explicitly, I think when the first time this book came out, I didn't want to talk too much about what I was trying to do, but I wanted to create a book that like there's evidence to support like that long divisions are written by City, evidence to support long divisions are written by Bays, but I think there's evidence to support that long division is written by long division, like that the book is as bifurcated as all of the characters. And the book, you know, people refer in that book to some character that's called the Sky. I think the book kind of sort of is the sky. And if the book is the sky, the reader also is sort of a part of that. And I just wanted a tactile reading experience. You know what I'm saying? I wanted people to not just turn pages, but like flip shit over. I wanted people to have to do true and false questions. I wanted people to decide if they were going to do some of the essay questions that are asked in there. And in that space in the middle, I wanted folks to like invite people, not just underground into like the middle of that book, but in the ground in the middle of that book. And I wanted people to attempt to fill that space, either with words or sound or whatever. So it's absolutely meta. You know what I'm saying? Like I was attempting to write something meta. It's not even as meta as I wanted to be. Like I didn't want I didn't want my name on the title at all. But then they were like, well, how are we gonna sell that shit? And I was like, I don't know. But so if there is a revision of Long Division, I'm hoping my name won't be on the title at all.
Oh, that would be so dope, because it would, I mean, I love that the book doesn't have an author, because we're all sort of writing it as we go. And the reading experience is truly interactive, like in a way that I don't think anybody has really captured before. It's not like a choose your own adventure book, but it kind of is. And even in the new way it's been published, I want to show it's Long Division, but when you turn it upside down, you get to this whole other section that is in the opposite direction. So this is the end of part one, and then part two actually starts upside down, and you can only tell that Kiese is the author by looking here and also knowing where to start the book by looking at just the little scanner thing. So it was tricky at first. I was like, ooh, where do I start? Should I try reading it backwards this time and then reading it the other way? But it offers you so many different kinds of experiences that you can sort of choose your own adventure too.
I think I should have, right now it says book 1, book 2, and I think people assume sequential shit when they see 1 and 2. But I wonder if it should have just had like no book 1 or book 2, and if that would have confused people, maybe too much. But I do think book 1, book 2 kind of urges people to read it a particular way, but I don't necessarily want it read that way. I want people to just read it either way. Read it from the middle to the end if you want to,
Yeah, I think it could work. I think the next time I read it, I would start from the other cities narrative, and because they're both open-ended, which is like the ellipses that run throughout the book. Like, this isn't the end of anyone's story. We're still writing them.
Right.
Neither city or Sitoyan knows what their life is going to be like. Levander Peeler definitely doesn't know what his life is going to be like. Baze doesn't know if she's going to exist. Like, there's so much. So yeah, structurally, it's a masterpiece, and I think that this print demonstrates that more. And what I love is the ending. I hope this isn't a spoiler, but you say, we started rereading Long Division from the beginning, knowing that all we needed to know about how to love better in Mississippi was in our hands. Baze was right. The sentences has always been there, and there's no period. So there's another ellipsis, just like all the ellipses on the cover and all the ... dots that people talk about in the book. And I think that's just so smartly done. So yeah.
Be happy.
You're a genius, Cassie. You really are.
I like when I make you happy, fam, because I teach heads all the time, and like it's my new like, I teach it in classes I shouldn't be teaching fiction. You know what I'm saying? I'm teaching a fucking push-up class next. I'm gonna try to, we doing push-ups on the book, but heads is it's the goal, you know what I'm saying? And it's partially the goal because of the range. I mean, I'm sure people talk to you about all this, but like, there's stories in that collection that one would assume you wouldn't see in that collection, because they have the same sort of mastery, but tonally they appear to be so different. And I just always want to try to, I don't think you can get any depth without like different tones. And so that's just also one of the things that you do so well that I want to try to do in my own work.
Thank you. I think you captured different tonal shifts amazingly, because this book is dark, it's funny, it's a little bit traumatic, it's very, very real and true. My husband is from Jackson, Mississippi, and I've been there, I don't know how many times, and we've been married for 15 years, and you capture Jackson like it's its own character. You capture, I mean, I don't know if Malahatchie is real. I hadn't heard of it, but it's not real. But it feels like being in Flora or being in Oil City, which is where my husband's grandma was from, and being at Sitoyan's grandma's house is like being at his grandma's house. And even being on cinder blocks and having enough land that there are trailers and other properties on it, and you see white people on your own land, it's all there, and it's so real. So that's another thing that I think you did really, really well.
Somebody said it's based on Pelahatchie. Yeah, it's a mix of Pelahatchie and this town on the coast called Waveland. And I was obsessed with Waveland just because, like, waves and not hair waves, but I mean not water waves, but them hair waves. And I just wanted to make a town that was part Pelahatchie, which is sort of next to where my granny lives, and part Waveland. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It's good to know. And I love that just the waves throughout, even the wave brush is its own character in a way.
Yeah. I was so happy that the wave brush can make the cover. You know what I mean? Like the half of the wave brush, because I just feel like we need more stories with wave brushes, like hair grease, you know what I'm saying? Like perm mishaps. I just think we need all of that.
Jerry curl wigs at Walmart on sale. Yeah.
Definitely need that.
Yeah. We need that. Can you talk a little bit about the kind of tug was not the right word here, and you'll see why in a second, but the push and pull between what's going on with like desire and lavender peeler and Satoyan, and there's homoeroticism, but there's also really, really heavy homophobia that has to keep coming up. Kindly pause. And the rumors that get started. And you talk about homophobia and queer phobia in general in How to Kill Yourself. So
I mean, you know, I think this, I mean, the city that starts the 2013 section is you know, the city's body is working through what desire means for like that body, but also, you know, it's his body is trying to understand like what it means to love lavender peeler versus desire lavender peeler, when he also feels like these sort of like longing feelings for other people. Meanwhile, he knows that he's being called like, you know, like a pejorative, like, you know, homosexuals being used by lavender as like something to like hit him upside the head with. And then when he goes to his grandmother's house, like, you know, he knows characters in that community who the community thinks are queer, who are treated as black, but, you know. And so, you know, with this as the backdrop, what he really needs is somebody to talk to about love, about desire, about sexuality, about all of these things, but not in some sort of like top-down way. And there's nobody to do it. So he starts like writing through it, and he starts like looking and longing and blah, blah, blah. And so, you know, I wanted to explore I think the messiness of like young black children's desire, and push that up against like sometimes like adults, you know, making that exploration of desire like much harder. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I wanted to do. You know, whenever I teach this book, or whenever I go in to talk about this book, if it's being taught in high schools, you know, the kids are just like, is he gay? Is he gay? Like, you know what I mean? And part of that is because they want to stop thinking. You know what I mean? Like, because they want me to be like, I mean, you know, he's fucking 13, 14-year-old dude experimenting and exploring whatever the fuck he is in that moment. And so like some of it is absolutely queer, some of it is absolutely gay, and some of it is absolutely gay and other shit. And some of it is absolutely like not gay. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I wanted this character to be as like lost in desire as any character that I've ever read. And I think the sentences that he uses try to, you know, like deflect. Like whenever people look at him too closely and see something he can't see in himself, I think he try to use his sentences to deflect, which is what I think we all do, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, using the sentences to deflect, I think, is a huge part of how everyone deals with things. But I think there's also something kind of quintessentially Black. I don't want to be like an essentialist, but quintessentially Black about using sentences in certain ways, like the character who thinks he invented the hyphen, 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 hyphen ass doing something.
Right.
Like, or this, like, the sentence game is an elevated way of playing the dozens, the way that Lavender and Satoyan play it, at least. And even when other people get involved, it still devolves into that. So
and how do we get there though, Nafissa? Like, how do we get to a point where somebody like, we create sentences, right? Like, I want to meet the first person who was like, you old wiping your ass front and back ass nigga. You know what I'm saying? You old eating Popeyes when you need to be eating Weight Watchers ass nigga. Who thinks to do that? I mean, that was something we all do, but there had to be the first. And I'm just obsessed with like the first, and how like that sort of like sentence creation proliferates before the internet, to where it could start somewhere, you know, like a small town in Mississippi or Alabama or Florida, or, you know, possibly like Seattle, Washington, but it goes all across the country. And that is one of them, you know what I mean? Like, and you know, like everywhere I go, I meet Black people who are like, man, yeah, this old do nothing ass nigga tried to. I'm just like, how? Like, how did we do that? How did we do that?
And that's one that has like no, except for your fictional one, I've never read anybody claim the origin story of it before. Right. Like, there's nobody who's like, yeah, that was my grandpa. If you remember this Mad TV sketch where it was always like the first Black person to do such and such, and I remember really clearly the first Black person who said, absolutely not to getting direct deposit because like, you're not touching my check before I check. It feels like that, except it does run across the country. It is not just specific to a region. And that's another thing. There's kind of a universality, even though this is an extremely specific book and it is a very Black book. I think anybody young and old can identify with these characters if they had the imagination and the space to do so.
Hope so. I mean, you know, I hope so. I think we're doing some. I mean, we come from people and we create people who just do some sublime shit with the language, and it just becomes so copycatted so easily. I just want to wonder what happens if we sit down and think about like the beginnings and ends of, like, even now, like facts, like every, you know, I'm so like, I hate hearing a 50-year-old motherfucker be like facts, facts, facts. I'm like, no, bro, like we don't do that. Like facts, facts, fact. Okay, I don't know, but then all praise to the person who created that too, you know.
You can. I'm not going to.
Okay. Okay.
The last question I want to ask you before we open it up to other people is just, can you talk a bit more about music's influence on your writing? I know you talked about Lauryn Hill and Outkast, but music is prominent throughout just as part of like the culture and the setting and making the people real and fully fleshed out. But I know that you learned some things that changed the way you write based on their music.
Yeah, you know, I think Black sitcoms and music are as much like the why of Long Division as Invisible Man and Kindred and Blue as I. You know what I mean? Like, I used to teach this comedy course called Because Dave Chappelle Said So. It was about Black satire, and I just became really enamored with, like, you know, one of the things that Pryor said, which was like it's sort of impossible to actually explore the depths of what you need to explore if you're trying to sort of like make that exploration be palatable to a group of people who don't see yourself. It's the same thing Morrison said when she's like, you know, what happens to the writerly imagination of a Black writer who's consciously trying to represent their group to a group of people who consider themselves raceless. It's the same question. And I just started to think about a lot of music, and not just like the shit Baldwin talks about, like Bessie Smith, but yes, Bessie Smith, and of course, like, you know, music that people don't consider necessarily comical, but I think there's a lot of like comic bounce to Lauryn Hill, like to Miseducation, definitely to Fugees, and also like that album. People like the skits in that album are so much about education and love of children, and so like the skits in that album are so foundational to what I was trying to do in Long Division. But then other than that, I'm just always trying to do rhythms that appeal to me, but also trying to create narrative rhythms that I haven't heard necessarily. And sometimes, like I said, to go back circularly, like you have to follow and let the Black children that you are imagining like finish the sentences you want to create. And I think that's something that, you know, I think at the root of hip hop is like, these are like Black and brown kids who are finishing sentences with rhymes, with scratching, with dancing, with DJing, whatever. And that's sort of like what I wanted to do with that book. You know, Heavy, I think, is much more like like overtly blues text. I think this text is a little bluesy. Well, it's definitely bluesy, but it's something else too.
Yeah, I think bluesy and something else makes a lot of sense because there's almost an improvisational quality to it, and it's super interactive. So it feels kind of like, I don't know, having a rap battle in some ways. That's what the sentence competition is like battling and freestyling too. And then also the books themselves and the book within the book,
yes,
like freestyle.
Yeah,
so,
those books are definitely battling, you know, and I think if you're a particular sensibility, you're gonna vibe with the 2013 base version. If you're different version, you might vibe with the other one. You know what I mean? Like, but they're definitely battling too. Like, but it's loving battle, right? It's loving hardcore battle, which is sort of at the root of a lot of our culture, like that loving competition. Um, yeah, that pushes forth like new styles, and that's what we're trying to do, you know.
mhm. The very last thing I'll say is I really appreciated how you treated the B word in this draft. That there's always a B and then a very long M dash and an omission of the ITCH. And that just felt That wasn't in the original version, right? It
Nah,
wasn't like that.
wasn't. It was, if I quoted, that's what I'm saying. When I talk about revision, I think you also have to think about, what you do and why you do it. So in that first draft, like if characters said the B word or the F word, or if characters said words like that, like it was in quotes, but it was there. But I don't say those words, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't say those words for a reason. I've never say those words. And so I just thought, this kind of might break the fictive illusion, but like I don't want those words. Though I know the characters say them, like I don't want those words in the book, because I want the reader to understand that there's a dissonance between like the imagined real that these characters inhabit and like the authorial real that the author's trying to create. And like I mean, say the word or don't say, but I just want you to understand, like, the book is actually thinking about all of those words too. And I just didn't want those words to be in the text.
Yeah, I really respected that. It's something I've tried to navigate because there are certain words I don't want in my text, and I'm worried that people would push back and say, well, this is how people talk, you need these words.
Right.
But so far I haven't gotten any pushback, and I think I'm going to still, like you said, if I do start to get some from editors who are like, no, make them say X or Y, because
Right.
I don't have to.
We don't. And like I say the word nigga, like I say it, I think about it a lot. The book talks and thinks about it a lot. It starts with the the word niggardly being used in that context. It's an exploration of that word. I feel the nuances of that word. And so like, yeah, like I'm gonna write that word out. I don't feel that way about those other words coming from my particular sensibility, like I don't if I don't say the B word, I don't need to write it. If I don't ever say the F word, I don't need to want other people, readers, to say it. And if they do say it imaginatively, I want them to think about what it means to say a word that's like hyphenate, like that's like erased. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that this is like revolutionary shit at all. It isn't. But ethically, I just didn't feel like I made a great decision the first time around.
Yeah, it's ellipsis again and ... It's letting people decide how they're going to end a sentence and what the words mean to them. And I think that was really smart. So everything you do is really smart.
Yeah, that's
maybe
you.
not all day, maybe not 24/7, but I feel like you could have 7 edibles in a day and still like just blow our mind with 5 sentences.
I need to holler at you about how to be smart on that stuff, because I'm just happy on it, but never smart.
And I just had a ketamine infusion today. I got shot up in my neck. My neck is numb. Other parts of me are numb below the waist.
Oh.
I'm up in the sky. I'm bootsy college. I'm part of the funkadelic right now. I'm glad I made it through my part without
happy. I love that you said that.
So
I love you and thank you for doing this, fam. You are the genius, and you've given us work that's gonna like carry us for decades and decades. And I know the even flyer work is on the way. So thank you for all you do. Thank you.
Thank you. You're truly a mentor and so generous. And this was awesome. So Caitlin's back.
Yes, I'm back. So we have some questions from folks in the audience. Ooh, they're just rolling in. Okay, so I think I'm just gonna go in order of them being received. Okay, so this is a long one. All right, I'm just gonna read it verbatim. They say, I hate you mentioned the sky because this is a question I couldn't get off the last time we talked. So I suppose you've met before. Anyway, water, wind, fire, words, people. No spoilers, but what I want to talk about is the sky. Sky watches, takes away, and maintains a gaze on everything, kind of like the all-seeing eye of Melahatchie. What work does the sky do, and what space does it hold in the book for the characters that live, hurt, and heal under it?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. In that book, there's this scene where all of the kids are like outside of the hole and they're looking up, and this is the point where Baze is maybe about to disappear or not. And at some point somebody says something about the sky, and then Baze is like, but people are the sky too. And so like all throughout that book, I think characters look up and sometimes allude to a sky that I think is one authorial. I think the sky is long division, like the actual book that these characters are inhabiting. I think they look up sometimes and they can see and feel the constructedness of what's up there. And also I think that Mama Lara is a kind of sky to the narrative too. So that's a beautiful question, but that's the short answer to it too.
Yeah. So this next one is from CB. They're a huge fan of Long Division. So this is off topic. And there was there was a mention of you working with Donald Glover. Any new news of what that will be? Whatever it is, they can't wait. I don't know if you can speak to that, if there's any truth to it.
That's weird right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. I can't.
No worries.
I don't know how that person. I don't know who this person is, but yeah, I can't talk about that out loud right now. But I adore Donald Glover's work, and yeah, I can't speak on that. So thank you.
No worries. Moving on. I'm sure they understand.
Before we move on, can you please just like hook it up so I could do that America dance with him? I'm really good at that dance. If there is a thing, please text me. And
I'm gonna make sure that you and Donald get on the thing. Like that would be dope.
Okay, thank you.
Already here. Okay. Oh, this is a nice one. What age character is most fun or interesting for you to write in your stories or fiction?
I mean, that's a tough question because I think the age. I mean, I'm working on this project now where I'm writing older people. I love writing old grandmothers. I love writing grandmothers, but I also love writing like 14 to 16-year-old kids. So those are the ages, and even heavy was just like, you just have to fool people long enough to like I stay in adolescence like a long time in that book because I'm comfortable writing it. So like I'd rather write from the POV of like a 16 to 17-year-old or like a 70 to like 90-year-old. Yeah.
I think that makes sense because like everything feels so big, like your feelings, it's all so much. And then anyway, I agree. So okay, next question. Is there a connection between City being in the sentence competition, which is kind of like a rap battle, and Bays being an inspiring, or maybe they meant aspiring?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I just don't like to like take things and not like say thank you. And so, that book is like hip hop inspired. I'm not sure it's like a hip hop novel, but it could be hip hop novel and other things. And yeah, Baze is definitely like, she's an aspiring MC. She wants to use YouTube to get on. And I just know that like the rap battle has its origins like long before the rap battle, and the battle royale that Ellison starts Invisible Man with has its origins like long before that battle royale. I just always want to find and explore the roots so you can explore like the proliferation like of whatever. And so yeah, like it's a rap book in a lot of ways, and Baze being an MC is crucial. Like her entire persona, her entire like performance is like rap based, like she always wants to take the stage, she always wants the mic, and she always wants to drop the mic. Every scene she wants the mic and she wants to drop it, she wants to take it a different direction than it wants to go, and she wants to bounce. And so that to me makes her super compelling. But also, if you understand her as the engine of the novel, I think you understand how important hip hop is to that novel.
All right. Oh, they're just like pouring in. Okay, let's see. I'm keeping an eye on the clock. Okay. Oh, I don't know anything about this. Terry Ann would like to know, can you tell us more about your children's book?
It's just beautiful. I'm collaborating with this artist out of Jamaica, Ricardo Edwards, and it's called City Summer, Country Summer. It's based on this piece I wrote for the Times last year. And it's incredible. It's about this kid who comes from New York to rural Mississippi, and he and these kids in rural Mississippi end up playing Marco Polo in this fucking lush ass garden. And it's about a lot of other things, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful like looking book. So that'll be out next June.
That's so exciting. I'm going to put a link to that on the artist's Instagram if anybody would like to check him out. Okay. And I think after we got a few more, and then I think we'll have to wrap it up and say goodbye. Okay. Christine says, Black stories for the culture are transformative. So thank you both. We need all your work and both of your voices. Christine's never been to Mississippi and now she wants to visit. Christine, please come say hi.
Hey, you come to Mississippi, you got to come to Square Books though. Like it's one of the best things we got going, and we have a lot of best things going. But Square Books is where it's at. So come through.
We'd love to have you. The balcony's open again. We got coffee and so many books, including y'all's. Okay, moving on. Mary, oh, this is nice. Can you talk about your work with high school students and if and how they inspire you?
Oh man, they definitely inspire me. Before the pandemic, high schools and sadly jails and prisons are one of the places that I spend a lot of my time when I'm not working at institutions. I mean, those are other kinds of institutions, and it's fucked up because when I go to jails or go to detention centers, I'm talking to often like high school age or even middle school age, sometimes kids, and listening much more than I do. And so I think what I've noticed is when you go into these spaces as an adult, much less an adult who's an author, the last thing that these kids expect is for you to actually actively listen. And so I just like to do lots of different sentence contests. I like to do lots of story contests, but actually I like to listen and then repeat to them what I hear and then say to them, no, I meant this, that, and the third. And that's the way to model on the site, on the spot revision. And that's sort of what I'm all about. So I love working with high school folks. It's like the biggest joy of my professional life, for sure.
I love that, listening. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not saying anything profound. It's so important, and everyone needs that, but especially high schoolers. So thank you for thinking to do that. Okay, Reggie says, all things considered is one of the most famous phrases in this book, which is a love letter to the sentence. What are all the things a sentence should possess in order for you to consider putting it on the page?
Wow.
Whoa.
That's too hard. I do think a sentence needs to know where it is attempting to land. I do think sentences need to know where they want to go. And if they're not going where they want to go, I think sentences need to know what sort of clothing and other kinds of accoutrement you put on it. So I don't know how to answer that specifically, but I want to write sentences that know to whom they're landing. And that's really hard because a lot of times we're writing sentences to this amorphous literary person who's judging us. I don't like those kind of sentences. I want to write different kinds of sentences that want to land in different places than traditionally our sentences have landed. So that's what I got for that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. And Nafissa, if you would like to weigh in, I'd be so curious to hear your answer. No pressure. But what do you think?
I love that question. It was so beautifully and smoothly phrased. I think my answer is similar to Kiese's. It's kind of hard to pin that down. I like to let the sentences tell me where they want to end, which is what I like that he said about this book, letting children in their sentences the way that they want to. And I think that writing really should involve a lot of play, and I kind of let them lead me. So a lot of my stories end up as just a line, or they begin as just a line that I follow. And I don't know who the character is. I don't know what the plot's going to be. I don't worry about any of those things. I just sort of let the words take me where they do. And I have fun with it. I also keep notebooks full of words. I'm like, I want to use this word in a sentence one day. It doesn't matter what project it goes into, but I just have lists and lists and lists of use this word one day. And I'm constantly dictating them into my phone. So that's one way that I approach the sentence building.
I love that.
Yeah, I think both of those are so great because it's all just, I don't know, there's kind of no like ego involved. It's just about like, I don't know. It's just so wonderful. And I want to hear like, what are some of those words that are kind of swimming in your head right now, if you would like to share?
Right now, nap time,
Yeah.
good night's sleep, but I I don't know, mercurial,
Mm.
furtive. I think I wrote down furtive the other day. Somebody used rivulets as a verb, rivuletting down her legs, and I thought that was interesting. It was Helen Phillips in The Need, which is what I'm reading. So yeah, as I read, I just write these words down.
Yeah, that's a great one. Well, I guess on that note, in the spirit of nap time and bedtime and maybe dinner time, wherever y'all are in joining us, I do want to thank you both so much for taking the time to do this. It's been such a pleasure. And Kiese, I'm so excited you've joined us for so many of these as a conversation partner. So I'm glad that we can put the spotlight on you. We're just so glad that this book is out in the world. It's the way that you envisioned it, or at least maybe closer to how you envisioned it. We have this is kind of my shameless plug, paperbacks and hardback editions with book plates that Kiese kindly sent to us. And I would like to remind everybody that we, all indies, but Square Books, could not hold author events in person, Zoom, hybrid, or otherwise without your support. So if you don't have this book yet, I would love to send one to you. And I put the link in there a couple of times. I'll drop it in one more time, but mostly I'm just so glad that you all joined us to celebrate this beautiful book and talk about it with these wonderful people. Thank you all so much. Kiese, I'll give you the last word and then we can say goodbye.
I'm really grateful to be here with Nafissa. Yeah, and if you haven't read Heads of Color People, read it. And if you have read it, reread and reread. It's a tutorial, y'all, on how to do some of the stuff we're trying to do. And thank you, Square Books, and thank you, Caitlin. And hopefully we can all be in each other's real presence soon.
Yes, I hope so.
So
But yeah, thank you all so much. Take care, and hopefully we'll all talk soon. Good health, happy reading. Good night.
thanks.